All right, a very good morning. Welcome to this edition of Morning Cafe this lovely Tuesday morning, the 23rd of January, 2024. You know what? I think we can only begin the countdown to the end of January after we are done with the number of weekdays, probably when we say there's no more Tuesdays in January. Because even as it is, there's still another Tuesday.
Oh, yes, the second last Tuesday.
Yes, we won't start the countdown until then. My name is Fred Indebole. How hot is a coffee where you are?
And I'm used to Stanley Nyaringita. Welcome to Terrific Tuesday. This particular morning discussing Shara and how to really save all that coming up later on around 8 a.m. Right about now, taking a look at the weather. Yesterday, I promised you it is going to be sailing through the whole Juakali and everything. Today it feels like 16 degrees Celsius, but it promises to be hotter as the day goes by. From around 8 a.m., the temperatures are expected to keep rising by 2 degrees each until Jioni Pale, about 24 degrees Celsius. Let's take a look at the traffic right about now. And, well, not too much to actually report. As you can see, green spots everywhere. Let's take a look at this red patch here and see, I believe this is Mombasa Road.
Actually part of Uhuru Highway.
Oh, okay.
Heading towards Haile Selassie from Mombasa Road. There seems to be a slight snarl up there.
Oh, yes. And but then as you cross that particular traffic snarl up eases through, we'll be getting back to see how the papers are looking like. Speaking of the papers, we'll take a look at...
A quick look at the dailies. And yes, we have an array of all the papers there. And of course, on the Standard, Justice on trial as a Ruto core may meet. This is a big headline, I think, across all dailies. So that's what the Standard has gone with. The Daily Nation, big job cuts loom for civil servants. Something different, but of course, a photo of the President and the Chief Justice meeting also making it to the front page. Any other daily?
On to the Business Daily. Ruto targets 133 billion shillings annually from new health insurance plans. Seems as if all the three dailies are now focusing on all different matters here. On to the next. All right.
All right. Let's take a look at the highlights before we move on. And the first highlight today, debate rages on after leaders of the three arms of government hold special meeting and commit to revive the war on corruption with skeptics up in arms.
And across the borders, Liberia's new president, 79-year-old Joseph Boakai, failed to reach the end of his inauguration speech and had to be helped away from the podium during his swearing-in ceremony.
Mother sport, Cape Verde, Senegal, Equatorial Guinea, Nigeria and Egypt through to the knockout stages of the Africa Cup of Nations tournament as more teams seek to qualify.
Right, even as we continue, a quick highlight on what to expect today in Kenya and also across the borders. Mumia East, Member of Parliament, Peter Salassi is expected to present himself before EACC to record a statement after the whole incident last week of assaulting MCA Peter Indimuli. From that, the ODM leader Raila Odinga continues his coastal region tour. Today he'll be in Tana, this even as the grassroots party recruitment continues. And the affordable housing project public hearings continue today. And in Nairobi, they will be happening at the KICC. This whole public hearings happening across 19 counties. And across the borders, Julius Malema will be in Ghana, and the leader of South Africa's Economic Forum, Freedom Fighters, EFF, will be in Ghana for an engagement with the Ghanaian youth. Interestingly also, in today in history, still in matters South Africa, back in around 2018, Let me just get that right. There was Hugh Masekela, if you remember him, an anti-apartheid activist and South African jazz legend, died on such a day back in 2018. That is the news diary, and also today in history. We'll be updating this particular diary to the tail end of the show as we incorporate the county diary. Let's dive into the dailies now.
All right, and I was waiting for that nice newspaper bumper, a news review bumper. But anyway, let's move on and start off with the Standard this morning. And on the Standard, justice on trial as Ruto Koome meet. That's a big headline. Lawyers and opposition leaders have said the meeting between the Chief Justice and the President will not augur well, as that is direct interference in the independence of one arm of government. The leaders say the dialogue will dent public confidence on the institution. It is the biggest talking point, covered extensively on pages 4 and 5. Some of the goodies that the Judiciary came out with from this meeting, and this is why it raises a lot of questions. Were they just going there for the meeting to get something? On the budget, the executive and parliamentary leadership have pledged to increase budgetary allocation to the Judiciary. On appointment of judges, the bench is to get 25 High Court judges and 11 Court of Appeal judges. And on transportation, the executive has promised judiciary leadership that it will conclude the vehicle leasing program to facilitate transport needs. There's a big headline and a photo there of the President and the Chief Justice after the meeting that brought together the leadership of the judiciary, legislature and executive at State House, Nairobi yesterday. This is still the Standard. Yes, the other story given prominence on the front page of the Standard, parents, teachers confused by CBC grade 6 marks. And this is something we've not been paying attention to. The KEPSEA exams, those crossing over from grade 6 to grade 7, their very first assessment happened last year. Those results were released sometime this year, but parents are saying they cannot understand how the results are being explained. And tutors say the grading system should be changed, as they're left wondering how learners performed. Other highlights, senators talk on party rattles UDA. This is Nyeri Senator Wamatinga, and he said that probably Mount Kenya region was wrong into going into the last election or even joining the Kenya Kwanza coalition without a party of their own. Remember, they're members of the UDA party.
Yes.
In business, gurus on economy, cooperate or sink. Policymakers and business leaders attending the World Economic Forum have pinned high hope on cooperation based on mutual trust and respect to drive global economic growth. Those are the main headlines. Other highlights on the top strip of the Standard. Police get crucial leads in Waeni's brutal killing. This is a story that continues to develop. In the Financial Standard, they pull out safety concerns in state's quest for overseas jobs. In business, no let-up as shilling sinks again. And in sports, will Cameroon stand and be counted? Now, this is a coverage of the ongoing Africa Cup of Nations tournament in Ivory Coast. It's been covered extensively, at least 3 pages on the back of the Standard, page 40, page 39, and page 38. And yesterday, interestingly, Cape Verde, which has already qualified for the knockout stage, held Egypt to a 2-2 draw. Remember, and these are the questions people are asking. We've seen Harambee Stars beat Cape Verde on more than one occasion, or at least hold them to a draw.
So the possibility of Harambee Stars performing...
How come we rarely perform well when it comes to the big stage? And Cape Verde can actually...
the ghost that haunted Kenya's football.
Yes. Interestingly, so many teams have already qualified for the group stages, for the knockout stages. This include Cape Verde, Senegal, Equatorial Guinea, Nigeria, and Egypt. Matches to be played today, Gambia versus Cameroon at 8 p.m. That will be determining a lot. Guinea versus Senegal. Senegal has already qualified. Angola, Burkina Faso, and Mauritania versus Algeria. That's a late game at 11 p.m. That's the Standard today.
Let's go over to the Daily Nation, and the big highlight there, big job cuts loom for civil servants. And in more context, they say following damning audits exposing the extent of ethnic discrimination in public sector employment that has seen a few tribes dominate government jobs, a new bill seeks to further reduce the statutory quota for dominant community in an agency. If enacted, it could be restructuring of state agencies and possible job losses. Remember, we had focused this, I think it was on Monday, probably yesterday or last week. There was a whole audit on the same. And just below that, they have that photo there of President William Ruto, CJ Kome, among other leaders of various arms of government, and what Ruto and Kome discussed in crisis talks. They have that on page 4, at the very top scroll. Remember yesterday, Fred, you're asking, why is it that this story went quiet, for that particular Monday, and it had been, widely discussed last week. But then it is being focused today. How killers bought weapon online. Detectives tell court one of the suspects in the murder of university student Rita Waini bought a hatchet from an online vendor, claiming it was for self-defense. The police believe the weapon was used during the murder of the 20-year-old woman whose decapitated body was found in an apartment at Kasarani. Kiambu Court has allowed police to detain 8 days 2 Nigerians, William Opia and John Bull Asibor, arrested following the killing. Was on page 2. Real quick, other highlights on the right scroll. Matters devolution. Senators want funds for poor counties extended. Matters survey. Tactics Kenyans are using to cope with hard economic times. And poll shows the majority of Kenyans are in financial distress. They have resorted to side hustles and foregoing meals. Now, for this particular story, we'll be having at around 8 a.m. an economist as well as the chair of the Gikomba Traders Association, just to highlight those mechanisms that those who have daily earnings, how do they save, how do they manage their earnings really. Right. And we'll be also diving into various counties just to understand how that picture is. In matters education, 280,000 Form 1 students yet to join secondary school, as much as, the government and the Minister of Education was talking about 100% transition, getting a clear picture now. That is on the back page, which you can flip and also take a look at other stories that reflected on the back page of Daily Nation. Away from matters education, on the left scroll on the back page was Ngeshu residents give Ruto housing drive huge vote of confidence. I'll be seeing if that will be happening today in Nairobi in KICC. At the very top scroll, matters AFCON, Themba Zwane, a 34-year-old once deemed too old for international football, scores twice as South Africa trounced Namibia. Kobado Nyuma. We're giving you the latest of results.
This is day two reporting.
Yes.
Tuangazie gazeti la Taifa Leo. Utafiti hali si hali. Mahangaiko, karibu robo tatu ya Wakenya wanakiri kulemewa na ugumu wa maisha, hasa gharama ya chakula, karo ya shule na kodi ya nyumba, kwa mujibu wa Infotrack. Habari kamili kwenye ukurasa wa pili. 73% ya Wakenya wasema maisha yamewafinya sana hadi wamekata tamaa. And you're just talking about the saving culture and what people, how people can save from their daily wages. That's something to look forward to. Pale chini kwenye ukurasa wa mbele wa Taifa Leo, picha tena ya Rais William Ruto na jaji wa mahakama kuu Martha Koome na wengine pale viongozi wa serikali, na wanauliza pale mwafaka, Koome ameingia boksi? Swali pale. It is what everyone is wondering. Je, ameingia boksi? Vidokezo zaidi kwenye ukurasa wa mbele wa Taifa Leo. Masuala ya siasa za ODM, Junet apata watetezi. Viongozi mbalimbali hasa wa ODM wakiongozwa na Hassan Joho wapinga mpango wowote wa kumwadhibu mbunge wa Suna Mashariki. Kwingineko, ndwele ya jasho lenye harufu mbaya. Fahamu zaidi kuhusu tatizo la kutoa uvundo kila mara jasho linapokutoka, kwenye ukurasa wa 13 na ukurasa wa 17. Masuala zaidi, washukiwa mauaji ya Rita kotini. Pale juu kwenye ukurasa wa mbele wa Taifa Leo, nitaheshimu uamuzi wa koti, Ruto asema. Rais akutana na jaji mkuu na spika kujadili jinsi ya kumaliza ufisadi. Na kwa masuala ya spoti, Algeria, Misri na Cameroon roho mkononi. Senegal waliofuzu ni kati ya majabali wanaofunga kazi ya makundi katika AFCON leo, lakini Misri washafuzu tayari. Masuala ya gazeti siku mbili baadaye.
Let's take a look at People Daily, and they have 4 stories on their front page. The big one, Kome meets Ruto with begging bowl. I think they're picking up from the whole Kome ingia boxi. And they say, a truce after weeks of brawl. President pledges cash for hiring of 36 judges and leasing of cars for judiciary staff following talks with Chief Justice Kome. That is on page 4. Brings up the whole can of worms of doublespeak to leaders of the government. Maybe between the year and mid-year, even as the year progresses, are we going to see, a whole 1 step forward, 2 steps backwards on such matters? Other stories, matters education on the left. Stop harassing teachers, says TSC, and employer warns against continued attacks on school heads by parents and learners, blaming them for exam failure. In matters party politics, Raila Azimio is as strong as a fiddle. Remember, he'll be in Tenerife today. At the very top scroll, they say 73% of Kenyans are broke, reveals a survey. But do you think you're part of this 73%?
Definitely. I am right in there. Those 73% of Kenyans, we are broke, and we have no clue what will happen.
And among those comments that were made were, I am comfortably managing, I am neither struggling nor comfortable, I am struggling to make ends meet, and I am in a severe financial distress. So you really have to see where you are, Apo katikati. And according to InfoTrack, due to the financial distress, at least 32% said that strain on personal relationships, while 18% others indicated they suffered mental health effects. That is the front page of People Daily this morning.
All right. Let's take a look at the Star. On the Star matters politics, Gachagua faces battle for survival in kingpin contest. And the Star always steers clear of whatever others are doing. It has to be different. So, and they're saying this on the front page, that Kindiki, Ndindi, and the Uhuru Mainanjenga axis plotting against the deputy president. Interesting how you always have a way of dragging Uhuru back to everything happening to UDA. The DP's influence and succession chances are being challenged. That's according to the front page of the Star. Other stories making it to the front page of the Star. Azimio county bosses troop back to Raila, and they're talking about the governors who had already indicated that they would be seeking allegiance to the government of the day. Now they're going back to Raila's side. Matters food for thought, diet to blame for exam failure. Studies show, yes, kula samaki, they say. Oh, yes. That's a secret.
Kichwa samaki.
Kichwa samaki. And on the diplomatic war, Kenya's solo trade deals, ACK EAC members. Those are the stories on the front page of the Star today.
All right, I think that's our cue to Vuka Boda. And this particular morning, we begin with Rwanda. The New Times, 7 initiatives placing Rwanda as major player in AI field. And government predicted an ecosystem worth $589 million AI potential in the next 5 years. That is on page 3. Another photo there of Rwandan Defense Forces Chief of Defense. Mozambique Army Chief visiting Rwanda. That is just among the top highlights in that particular country.
All right. Let's take a look at Uganda. And tuende Kampala, we look at the Daily Monitor. In Uganda, today it's about some crime. Molly Katanga's DNA was found on pistol trigger. The DPP in a report to the Nakawa Chief Magistrate's Court, says results from samples presented to ballistic experts show that Molly Katanga's DNA was predominant on the killer pistol. Matters to do with crime, but there's a funeral of Cecilia Ogwal, a woman representative in the Ugandan parliament who passed on, and a picture there of the president and the first lady of Uganda paying their respects in parliament, where the casket was taken as part of the memorial for that fallen member of parliament. The other paper in Uganda is the New Vision. New Vision also has a photo there of the president and the first lady mourning Cecilia Ogwal, the MP, at Parliament buildings in Kampala. But the main headline is about the G77, and Museveni pledges prosperity for G77. He says, if we work together, there's nothing we cannot achieve. The G77 summit took place this week in Munyonyo, Uganda.
It actually concluded yesterday.
It concluded yesterday.
Oh, yes.
All right, and that's as far as Uganda news is concerned today.
Tuangalie what is happening in Tanzania and the Citizen. So Fred, here's a stark difference from what we as Kenya are reporting, that 73% of Kenyans are broke. But in Tanzania, the Citizen, they say how rest of East Africa can catch up in startup funding. And they actually mention how Kenya is really doing well. So they say with Kenya having attracted an eye-popping $800 million investment, startup investment in 2023 alone, experts have outlined reasons behind this runaway success and offered advice on how other East African nations can follow suit. I talk about Kenya's success outshining the entire East African region. Well, kudos to us, really.
It's interesting how you draw the parallels between how our neighbors see us.
And also how we see ourselves.
How that InfoTrack poll says about our feelings about our own state.
Oh, yes.
73% of Kenyans say,
But our neighbors feel like, well, it matters investment. We are quite doing well.
It tells you something. If at all we feel that we are not doing well, but our neighbors see like we are doing better than them, then it just tells you how bad the situation could be across the borders. But then again.
The highlights reflecting on this page, CDF wary of security threat posed by refugees. That's the CDF for Tanzania, General Jacob Mkunda. And, well, finally, the day Salim Arafat met over Israeli-Palestinian conflict. That's Tanzania's involvement in that particular conflict. And that's as far as this particular papers go. Do have Mwananchi as well here. And I was taking a look at this paper earlier and just wishing the editor had deleted the word mzigo and put nyavu. They say Samia shusha mzigo kwa JWTZ. Alitaka kukaa tayari kwa lolote kwenye uchaguzi wa serikali za mitaa, uchaguzi mkuu, huku akisisitiza amani, uadilifu. Azungumzia udhibiti wa waasi wa M23, kauli yake ya waibua wadau vyama vya siasa vya hoji. And that's just among those that is happening in that particular daily.
I don't know if we took a look at the Business Daily.
We actually didn't.
Okay, let's do that because it's an interesting headline on the front page of the Business Daily. Before we venture into the cartoons, Ruto targets 133 billion shillings. This is the front page of the Business Daily. Annually, 133 billion shillings annually from the new health insurance plan. 77 billion shillings expected from salaried workers. The rollout after February 9th public views deadline. And this is on the new SHIF that's going to replace NHIF, 133 billion shillings. Probably that was the target. Elsewhere, Treasury mulls new farm for Hustler business loan guarantees. They're talking about after the Hustler Fund. Once you progress beyond the Hustler Fund, they're looking for a new farm to handle that kind of lending to potential business people. On the ticker on the front page of the Business Daily, consumers woes as KPC Kenya Pipeline Company fuel losses hit new high. Elsewhere, Resolution Insurance enters liquidation as a rescued bid falls or fails. Anyway, some good news here. Diaspora remittances grow to record 671 billion shillings in 1 year. Wow, that's interesting. That's the front page of the Business Daily today. So now we can safely take a look at the cartoons.
Oh, yes. The cartoons this morning, kama kawaida, page 10 of People Daily, on page 14 of the Standard, and page 17 of the Daily Nation. I see you holding the Daily Nation.
Yes, on the Daily Nation, this big talking point on that meeting between the leaders of the three arms of government, and they're calling it Summit of the Three Arms. How do we reinvent this wheel? War on graft. That was a promise that came out yesterday. I know different dailies have come up with their feelings or their assessment of that meeting. But there's one thing that was clear, that they pledged to fight corruption. And this cartoon seems to be questioning. How different will this fight against corruption be? Are they hoping to reinvent the wheel, or will it be half-hearted attempts like we've seen previously that head nowhere? That's a cartoon,
yes.
And that must be Victor Ndula.
Oh, yes. And just below that, they have Mashera Gaido's assessment on, well, the same. CJ played into Ahmed Nasir's hands. Seems like an interesting read there. But away from that, on page 14 of the Standard, gentleman donning the purple shirt, looking like Kotu Secretary General Francis Atwoli. We were talking about this yesterday, how he had promised to give the president a list of how to revive the economy, and he is actually holding that list. How to turn the economy around. But one of the workers there holding and carrying him on his shoulders, and the worker seems, representing the workers in the country, seems worn out, really. And they're heading to State House. The workers are wondering, tutafika kweli? Oh yes, that's probably, are the workers also, as much as even someone who represents the workers saying, let me advise you, President, on how to turn around the economy, but are the workers really in tandem with this? Do they also support him, really?
And they draw parallels with that InfoTrack poll. 73%, almost 3/4, feel that hali si hali.
Hali si hali. Let's take a look at if hali ni hali in Azimio's vehicle. That's on page 10 of the People Daily. A gentleman there sitting on top of a toolbox, which is an orange toolbox. A gentleman looking like ODM leader Raila Odinga. And he says this is between a rock and a hard place. And
trying to fix the Azimio coalition.
Yes.
You know, the headlines yesterday were talking about cracks.
Oh, yes.
The Azimio coalition. And he says everything is okay, but it's up to him. Is he able to fix the kind of problems that are there?
Says ODM is as strong as a fiddle.
Is it? not ODM.
Azimio. Oh, yes. Azimio is as strong as a fiddle.
After the break, we'll be having in studio Maliba Arnold, Strategic Communications Advisor, UDA, Dr. Julia Chege, PhD governance expert, and Dr. Harun Isak Hassan, leadership and governance expert. Our panelists this morning, as we take a look at the big headlines, and of course the biggest talking point will be this meeting between the President and the Chief Justice yesterday at State House, Nairobi. On the front page of the Standard, it's justice on trial as Ruto Koome meets. And on the Daily Nation, what Koome Ruto discussed in crisis talks. On the People Daily, and let me just, yes, Koome meets Ruto with begging bowl. Interesting. These are just some of the things we'll be discussing, and do stand by later for that topic, that discussion about how to save from your daily wages. So for those who do not earn monthly salaries, but they earn something little every single day, how can you approach savings?
Oh, yes.
And you can be part of this conversation as well on our social media.
Number 2047 on our SMS, TV47KE on Facebook, and Yerungita_, and Freddy Ndemole on X. See you on the other side.
Sorry for that. The big discussion point being that meeting between the President and the Chief Justice yesterday at State House, Nairobi. That's what's headlining on the front page of the Standard today. And that picture of the President and the Chief Justice also makes it to the front page of the People of the Daily Nation, although the big discussion or the big headline on the Daily Nation is different. It talks about big job cuts looming for civil servants. On the People Daily, meanwhile, matters to do with that same meeting. The front page of the People Daily, the big headline talking about Koome, the Chief Justice, meeting Ruto with a begging bowl, and an image there of the President and the Chief Justice also on the front page of the People Daily. At least the People Daily also gives some space to that InfoTrack poll released yesterday, which says that 73% of Kenyans are broke. That's a survey. And probably we start from there. Allow me to introduce my panelists this morning. Starting on my immediate right, Dr. Julia Chege, governance expert. It's good to have you in studio in the new year. Karibu sana.
Thank you so much and Happy New Year.
Yes, Maliba Arnold, the strategic communications advisor, UDA party. It's also good to have you in studio. At least this new year, this is not the first time for you to come to 47.
Thank you.
And last but not least, Dr. Harun Isaac Hassan, a leadership and governance expert. It's good to see you in the new year.
Good morning.
Karibu
Thank
sana.
you very much.
Let's start off with that InfoTrack poll that at least features on the front page of the People Daily. And if my director could assist in putting it up, that bit on the front page of the People Daily, because at least that's one daily that has this on the front page. 73% of Kenyans are broke. That's almost 3/4. And according to InfoTrack, due to financial distress, at least 32% said that they had strain on personal relationships, while 18% others indicated they suffered mental health effects. Now, this is across the country. And I know there are so many people who are not necessarily fans of such surveys, but let's take a look at it, because either way, from time to time, we refer to them. So, Dr. Chege, this is indicative of a lot of things. There's those who argue that some of the criminal or rise in insecurity and criminal activity in Kenya could be fueled by the prevailing economic situation. Now, people are saying they're in financial distress, and at least a third, they're saying they have a strain on personal relationships, and others, 18%, almost a fifth, they have suffered mental health effects.
Actually, it is a very sad state of affair, and the truth is Kenyans are really suffering. And I will speak from a point of knowledge, whereby like now the schools were opening, and you find so many parents, they cannot afford to take their children back to school. You have so many requests that you can handle, even if you are an MP or a governor or whoever you could be. The reason is because the economy is going down, and we cannot come here and marinate the whole story and try to show the country things are very good. They are not good. They can only get better, you know. But at the moment, things are very difficult. And I wonder what informs or who informs the presidency, you know, without talking of the president, you know. You'll find them telling us the economy is coming up, but you find Kenyans are struggling. So the truth be told, Kenyans are going through a very rough moment, and when issues are very difficult, crime rate goes very high, because people want to get a living, to earn a living, and whichever means they can use and get into, you know, getting some money. Somebody made a joke the other day and said that hii serikali kona njaa, because that lady had been arrested, and the people who had arrested her, they were insisting on something you know, without even saying whether they are going to prosecute or they are going to do what, but something first, something, you know. So, and once...
Something in terms of bribery?
Something in terms of money, in bribery, you know. And they are negotiating in terms of, are you giving me 50 or 10? Or can you imagine to that extent? And I am sure you have seen out there, even, I would say even corruption is more expensive now. It's not even like the way it was before. If you go and you try to get a government job or you want to get something in a government office, and I would say this without fear or favor because that is the truth, you'll find that somebody cannot do something for you without something, you know. So I would say corruption is more expensive now. Okay. Long time, the askaris on the road were taking 50 bob. Today they cannot take 50. They want 200 bob or 100 bob. That means it has gone up, you know. And
unfortunately, we've normalized that kind of behavior.
That kind of behavior is already normalized, yes, depending on the side, the political side that you are in. Okay. Yeah.
Arnold, if you look at the front page of the People Daily, and if my director could assist me with this, because we need to look at the breakdown of how the responses that many people, and it's been broken down to the provincial regions, the 4 provincial regions, because they're looking even at Rift Valley region. Yes, thank you for that. And the majority of Kenyans say they're struggling to make ends meet. Of course, another number says they are in severe financial distress. There are those who are neither struggling nor comfortable, and very few, below 5%, say they are comfortably managing. And when you talk about strain in personal relationships and mental health issues, we're reminded of the kind of criminal activity that we see in the recent past. Cases of extreme gender-based violence that leads to murder, cases where we've seen people meet out their frustration on other motorists. A case in point last week in Kitengela, where boda riders descended on a motorist, and they were doing this in the full glare of even police officers, the audacity. And there are those who argue, yes, these things are interlinked, that the prevailing economic situation has affected Kenyans to an extent that they are now venting out in different ways. Do you agree with that assessment?
Well, I wouldn't entirely agree with it, because on any day, if you had an altercation with a boda on the road, you are actually going to experience a similar situation. It's quite common. We've been trying to deal with that phenomenon for quite a while, and that is a misnomer that is within the transport sector, where even at the matatu stage, the bus termini, somehow the conductors and I don't know, the touts, I wanted to call them the makanga, but then the word is the touts. There's always this feeling that in that particular sector, it's being a goon that actually makes one become employable around there, which is not a right thing. We've been trying to do that since the days of Michuki to correct that. Matiang'i also came in and he's really tried to put in some order, but once in a while it still flares off. So I do not think that the Kitengela incident, for example, is 100% interlinked to the situation. Having that, or rather that having been said, I love to say this. This is January. And as long as I've been born, January is a difficult month. Number one, because businesses contract. Partly because of the annual calendar, the calendar that we have today. That in December, at the tail end of December, the whole economy, the cogs go down, and everybody else goes back home to celebrate the birth of Jesus Christ. That in and of itself, of course, it's good. It affords us rest as a people, at least a majority of us. But then there is also the overspending that happens during that particular time. There are memes, there are jokes. Even way long before we invented memes, there were jokes about we deal with December as it is, and then we will have a January that has got 90 days. So this, you actually have got an imperative that comes out of a calendar and sociocultural activities. Secondly, I would really have loved to look at the sample size, but be that as it may, also, remember this is the time, and she spoke about it partly. Somehow, a lot of capital investment is done in January. A lot of organizations work around January, a lot of, for schools, that is the heaviest burden. Parents are literally buying school equipment, books, taking their children to school, and that is required once. You realize that not a lot of Kenyans will actually struggle if that was actually organized and done another way. But you see, you have got 5 children, and then all of them need not just fees, they need everything at once, and it's in January. So you expected such like an outcome in January if you were to carry that. And of course, yes, Doc will tell you here that when one has no money, it goes that mental issues follow, because resources, we are human beings and we are resource dependent. So whatever way you look at it, there is the correlation to that, that when you do not have, when you are strained, you definitely have got a little bit of mental discomfort. So that is going to happen. So I do not know the news value of this, especially in January. Knowing too well that even everybody will tell you, I'm telling you, ask anybody in January, they'll tell you, January is a dry month, literally. In fact, people are saying this is the fastest January. I don't know how fast it is when I'm actually on my 45th day of January. I'm still looking forward to 10 more. Otherwise, now as an adult, I know, and we make these jokes repeatedly. Probably the only people who are reaping big are people who are in the education business. If you own a school, if you own a bookshop, if you own a school uniform.
Dr. Issa Kassan, do you agree that this poll is purely indicative of the normal constraints that come with the beginning of the year?
My brother Maliba, I know the script he's reading. I know he knows very well that Kenya has gone through several issues in regards to economic crisis. You know very well we have been talking about high cost of living all through 2023. December is not an exceptional, because December, in the event that you had nothing all through, there is no way you can have something to celebrate with in December. So that's one fact I think that we need to put in place. But when we look at it from the perspective, as a mental health expert, when we look at it from the perspective of what is going on, we don't need another statistics. We can see every day that depression has hit Kenyans to an extent that you hear every other day domestic violence, an extreme of it where people are committing murders or homicides. And these are things that, of course, has significant effect on the livelihood, on the lives of Kenyans, depending on each of them, how it has been affected. For example, we get back to the schools, the season of getting back to school. What happens when you are going back to school? You are expected to pay school fees. You are expected to shop for your child. You are expected to pay transport to the schools. And above all, schools introduce some other costs. When the government talks about subsidy, the schools also talks about development. And when you go to those schools, you will find indeed those development are needed, because you will find there are 10 classes in each stream, and yet the classes are congested. And you as a parent, you want your child at least not just going through systematically the schooling system, but you want this child to come out with something that is reasonable, that will going to help him in his future. So depression is real, current crisis is indeed real, and we know the causes of those crises, beside other things, is being brokenness, of course, across everybody. You can see the number of vehicles on the road. I mean, before you couldn't drive to a place like this as fast as 10, 15 minutes. I drove from very far, and in 10 minutes, I was actually here. My brother Maliba must have driven from somewhere very far, but the roads were very clear. So there are things that we need to look at it in a manner that going to benefit the society, and there are things that we do politics. You know, when we are politicking, we do politics. But when reality catches up with us, we must admit that indeed this is a crisis. People, the cost of living has gone very high. Go and see the number of people who beg. We know families who have separated, or fathers who have left their houses and left mothers with their children in our neighborhoods. And these are people who are very stable earlier on, and they were running their families. So the effect of brokenness or the effect of the cost of living has hit us back very seriously.
But Maliba, of course, we do agree that January comes with its own set of unique constraints. But those others may say that what you're seeing now, yes, January is just an escalation of a problem that has been existing for quite a while. It's not a purely calendar related event that has been captured by this info truck. Paul, do you agree?
First of all, just to let him know that I was here last week and I was late for the show. The guys on the radio will tell you, because I took over an hour just from Muthaiga roundabout to this place. And you know, it's not more than 4 kilometers. So it's not true. Just because we were lucky today doesn't mean that the vehicles are few on the road. I'm actually saying that I was here last week. So this week we should be actually much worse because we are headed to the what we call Kona ya Mwezi. So it's not necessarily true. That analogy is quite a stretch. But be that as it may, I would also love, and it's good that this table is largely populated by scholars, that when you're doing an inquiry, when you're doing a research, you ask questions that normally sometimes look like they are not very human. Otherwise, if we are going to actually run with sentiment, we might actually miss out. Let me first of all build my case from this particular point. An increase in the IPV, for example, the intimate partner violence, right, for example, if we pack that 100% into the economic constraints and the hardship, we might actually get that wrong, because there are questions one will ask, and I will ask for, this is without prejudice to what has actually happened. Number one, is it truly that there is an increase in incidence of intimate partner violence? That is a question a good panel like this should actually ask, and then that will actually point us to statistics. Two, you will then ask, is it possible that probably there is no increase, but we have got a better reporting mechanism now? That is also a possibility and not a stretch, knowing too well that some of the domestic issues normally are not to be talked about. I said this on TV last week, and a little bit of the person I was with got a little bit of angry. I said I was watching an American movie, and there was the joke of saying that, did you meet the lady when she opened the door? Did she have a makeup on it? If she has got makeup on it, she's facing domestic violence. As in, that as a joke, yes. But then, on that particular end, things go down. So you would also ask, do we have better mechanisms now, reporting mechanisms? That has actually also improved largely, and it's helping us put out these issues. Because you know the issue about if a tree falls in the forest and there was no one to see it. What is that? So better reporting mechanisms perhaps. And then number three, there is that I always struggle with German as much as I did German in high school. It's called Bader-Meinhof syndrome, or rather the illusion frequency. The best way to actually put that is the case about the Florida man. That every time you started to read a story and it starts with a Florida man, you know that it's some ridiculous story. Many years later on in this country, it became a Murang'a man. Then, of course, we made a lot of fun about it. It will then escalate and then went to Naivasha. Every time a story came from a Naivasha man, you knew that it's funny. Currently, we are talking about a Kakamega man. Once a story is coming from Kakamega, especially when you say a Kakamega man, you know something funny is about to happen. It's called frequency illusion. So, even as we speak about that, could it that be that where cameras are focused, if we are looking for certain type of stories, they keep on emerging. You go to Kisii and then you focus on to some ridiculous things, and then they keep on showing up, and then everybody else is making fun on social media. If you go to concrete data, you find probably that is not the case. They could be happening elsewhere, but cameras are facing in one side. But then there is the number 4 question, is it all of it? Having used that as an example to anchor my argument, then I will say that like I said, how that is news, the news value in January, when even a person who doesn't double up in statistics would actually tell you that. And we don't have to be finding excuses where we pack all these things. Of course, there has been economic strain in most of last year. No one has actually denied that. And I'm talking about no less than the president himself will actually say that we've done so well for ourselves. When we were expected to fall, we stood up for ourselves as a people, and we are here. We've worked around. We now have got access to credit that wasn't there. So that is there. But I'm actually saying that the news value of this, if we actually have to peg it onto everything else, then we actually get it wrong.
Is it wrong for us to peg this kind of poll on the prevailing conditions? The fact that the entire 2023, we're talking about the same thing.
Actually, I'm listening to my brother Mariba here, and yeah,
because he's saying it's a misplaced news item.
No, we cannot say that. We cannot say that. No, we cannot say that because February is just around the corner. Let's see. December was the other, and I know there are families who are not able to celebrate anything. They were just at home. In fact, for the first time in my life in Nairobi, and I've lived in Nairobi like half of my age now, I can tell you, I saw families being in Nairobi, not going anywhere, not doing anything. That day, they would just cook a simple meal, rice and ugali or something, and that's it, So the truth of the matter is, I think we are discussing very serious issues in the country that are affecting each and every individual. And even if it has not hit your door, it is just around the corner,
It's coming.
And it's coming, and it's coming very soon. One thing that I know, and we start from education, when we saw our education system being interfered with, and the issue of the bursary and the help, who gonna get it, and whatever criteria, that is problem number one. Problem number two is the kind of the lifestyle that we are living in. That's why you find a lot of femicide or homicide or whatever side that it could be. And today I keep talking to the men and I tell them, today is the women who are being oppressed. It is the women who are being killed. It is the women who are looking for justice. It's the women who are looking for equal opportunity. Like today, if we go for an interview with a gentleman with a degree or a diploma, and I'm a PhD holder, because I'm a woman, I'm looked at as a lesser being. And I'll tell you the truth. My professors keep telling me, keep getting the papers, because when you go for an interview together, I'm telling you, the employers there, they look at a man in a different sector. And that is why I'm saying, the current situation in our country, the January that we are talking about, it could be 10 days, it could be 50 days, it could be 100 days. There are Kenyans who are going to Dubai for holiday. There are Kenyans who are flocking in Mombasa. There are Kenyans who are buying new cars right now. There are Kenyans who have nothing. They are walking in town, for example,
and according to this poll, that is a majority.
Yeah, they're walking in town with like 20 shillings and making sure that it doesn't fall. Otherwise, you walk home or you sleep hungry. So we cannot make a joke out of this. This is the truth. And Kenya National Bureau of Statistics, that statistics doesn't lie. It doesn't lie. When last year, I remember when they came up with the statistic in terms of GBV, Murang'a County was number 2. And that necessitated us to actually open a safe house. And let me tell you, my brother, gender-based violence, not every woman who can report that. First of all, it's an embarrassing situation. And I'm telling you, when we have a safe house, women don't just come and volunteer. They'll come, marinate the issue. It is us now as the development partners who are saying, no, Mariba, you have violated this girl. We have to take you to court. We have to do this. So I can tell you issues, gender-based violence. And I want to talk to Kenyans, men and women. Today is the women who are being oppressed. Tomorrow, when our women will be very, empowered. And you see, it's not about reporting mechanism.
Okay.
No. It's not about reporting mechanism. It is what there is currently.
Okay.
Yes.
Time for us to take a break, and of course, we'll be back to continue this discussion because I can see you're itching to contribute. But time for us to take a break, and you can be part of this conversation, of course, on our social media handles, on X at TV47 News and on Facebook, TV47 Kenya. Do stand by for more. You're watching Morning Cafe. Welcome back. You're still on TV47. This is Morning Cafe with me, Fred Ndimuli, and I'm still in studio with Dr. Julia Chege, Arnold Maliba, and Dr. Harun Isaac Hassan. We're discussing the economy and the prevailing situation. Based on that InfoTrack poll, we are 73% of Kenyans. And if I might just quote what the headline on the front page of the Taifa Leo, probably in Swahili it sounds different. Utafiti, hali si hali. Karibu robo tatu ya Wakenya wanakiri kulemewa na ugumu wa maisha, hasa gharama ya chakula, karo ya shule na kodi ya nyumba, kwa mujibu wa InfoTrack. Yeah. Asilimia 73 ya Wakenya wasema maisha yamewafinya sana hadi wamekata tamaa. Yes, and you wanted to contribute to that. As we come to the end of this discussion.
Yeah, I think it is important for us to note that Kenyans have sorted into a coping mechanism. And when you look at those coping mechanisms from the InfoTrack, statistics, or rather studies or even surveys, don't lie, because that information comes direct from the source. It's not analysis that has been conducted. It is actually information that has been gathered. And definitely when you see Kenyans, the strategies they have utilized in terms of coping with it or intervention strategies, Kenyans are borrowing from, the number of borrowers have increased significantly. Borrowers from family members or even friends and even neighbors, people whom they have never conversed with. As we are always our neighbors, we don't interact with them so much. But now circumstances or situation is forcing that we should interact with our neighbors, because when you are in crisis and your children or yourself have no single meal for that day, then the only option you have is your neighbor. So I think the culture of Kenyan seeking, or borrowing money from families or friends or neighbors has increased. The other component, which signifies the effect of the crisis in terms of mental health, is, of course, you see the number of people seeking financial counseling. That is an indication that Kenya is actually broke. Kenyans are broke completely. And when Kenyans reduce the number of meals per day, it signifies that we are going below, poverty, where the UN standard says people who are living below $1 a day will not going to make. And when you want to measure that, you look at it, the number of meals a family can afford in a day. So I think when we look at it from the perspective of the effect of the crisis, it is visible. We don't need to have another rocket science to tell Kenyans that we are actually in crisis. As the
beyond the January.
Beyond the January issue. January has never been an issue. Let me tell you one thing. Kenyans who have money have always been celebrating December. And when they know that there is something coming in January, they will always utilize the little resources they have in December for their holidays. No one will utilize money in December when you know you cannot make a meal a day. And that's what we are talking about. We are not talking about actually my brother Maliba and myself who can go to Mombasa and have a holiday package, which has been planned the whole year.
Kenyans deliberately compromise their ability to place a meal on the table come January.
I'm trying to situate this into the sociocultural setting that is Kenya, so that then we do not divorce it from who we are, and then also act like all of us this morning have just landed from Mars. And I'll give this analogy once more, that normally as we get into the weekend, people say, let me get into the weekend, make bad decisions, and then regret during the day. December has largely been the annual weekend, the big weekend of the year, where quite a number of bad decisions happen. And it's actually a global phenomenon. Do you know that there are organizations, and I'm talking about global, who make half of their sales during December alone? There's a lot of impulse buying, and there is data you can find out there. So even as we try to actually marinate these and make it look like it's something that is actually very new, we also have to situate it in reality. That December is the biggest biggest weekend of the year, the annual weekend that all of us then sometimes once in a while, out of annual pressure, like for example, Christmas has actually been commercialized to a way that and I don't want to, because they've not paid you for marketing, big supermarkets actually make half of their sales. In December alone, annual sales done in 1 month. You know exactly where that goes. But be that as it may,
it's pure
no, I'm just saying
spending over
that
the-
it's that there is this is important. But then can data be situated in a place so that then we don't just splash it? But allow me to say this. She spoke something about cultural empowerment. As a boy child, I would like to say this: that it's data again. That out of every 5 jobs in Nairobi today, 3 are held by women. Let's also not run away from that. We are near parity. It's working out very well. We've come a long way from where girls could not go to school and could not be given anything today. We've come a long way. There are still incidences, but those are now the exceptions and not the norm.
Okay.
Also, as we empower the girl child, in some places, the boy child was abandoned. And you see the revulsion and everything else. Now, that is also opening up a new sector that you actually have seen people study also. So even as we go about these discussions, we actually have to balance out. But finally, I need to say this. We are talking about InfoTrack, and this one is a biased comment from me. InfoTrack has got this felt need to always stand on the other side of statistics. Whether it's elections, and you see,
it's good that you actually qualify that statement.
I actually say so, and also then also allow me to say this because I'll not come back on this. I saw you reading, and you will probably take time and see how you read the Kiswahili, the Taifa Leo headline. The intonation, the feelings, you actually dramatize it.
But there's no any other word.
But you wouldn't say the stress there.
But there's no any other word.
He said, Wakenya wafinywa sana.
No, but do we have another word? If there's economic crisis,
I said
say it in Kiswahili. It's the same thing. That
No,
the intonation.
And this is the final word on
yes,
this.
the issue of Kenyans being broke is not a question we can discuss here. That is the truth. Kenyans are broke. And when you talk about holiday spending and December spending, why do people spend? It's because some people plan from January, I will be going to Mombasa in December, so they have to plan and save. But you see, this time round, Kenyans had nothing to save. It is hard to mouth. So you had nothing to save, and therefore, there is nothing to eat, and therefore, there is no holiday, and therefore,
January was simply an escalation.
It was just an escalation. And you see, these things are prorating. It's like when you want to divide.
Let me ask Daktari one question.
Let's not drag out this because
No, just a question to Daktari.
We have to handle this.
No, just one question. It's a yes or no question. Daktari, has there been a January in your life when things were easy in this country?
Yes, there are times
we are all in agreement that there is a
No. Child of privilege then.
No, it's not.
No, but we have never seen escalating into physical abuse or even
That's a lie again.
domestic abuse.
Where is the data to compare?
Let's agree that we may not come to an agreement, all of us, on this.
We may not agree on this one.
At least we've all gotten a chance to give our sentiments about this.
But at least also we know that Kenyans are hungry.
Yes. According to the InfoTrack poll, 73% of Kenyans are broke. That's the survey. Of course, you may feel otherwise, but let's move on to the other discussion. And this is a big talking point. It has been over the past 1 week since Chief Justice Martha Koome said that she was seeking a meeting with the president, and there was a public outcry. Enough people were skeptical about the possibility of that meeting happening. Yesterday, we saw the Chief Justice actually go to State House for this meeting. It is what is headlining, the big headline on the Standard today. Justice on trial as Ruto Koome meet. That's the headline on the Standard. On the front page of the People Daily, Koome meets Ruto with begging bowl. Yes. And on the Daily Nation, what Ruto and Koome discussed. Now, on the Standard, what it has done, it's listed the kind of goodies that the judiciary came out with from that meeting. And on the budget, the executive and parliamentary leadership have pledged to increase budgetary allocation to the judiciary. On appointments, the bench is to get 25 High Court judges and 11 Court of Appeal judges. And on transport, the executive has promised judiciary leadership that it will conclude the vehicle leasing program to facilitate transport needs. That alone makes it appear like the judiciary went to State House to get seek something from State House. Do you think that this kind of headlines and the way it has been addressed is simply building on the skepticism that Kenyans have had? Because many people feel that it appears that one arm of government is trying to exert undue influence on the other independent arms of government. With this kind of headlines and with the kind of goodies that are now listed that the Judiciary went to State House and came out with this, don't you think that it's just worsening the situation?
I think Kenyans have discussed over and over in terms of issues related to our governance structure. We know we have our legislature, we have our judiciary, and we have our executive. These are all independent entities. And of course, each of them play significant role. One enforces the constitution, the other one forms the laws, and the other one execute the laws or constitution. Now, if these three fold arms together, then we will lose bearing in that there is a discussion between the two of them and in compromising each of them's role. When you look at Kenyans discussing the issue of judiciary, this did not just come out of nowhere. It's the executive and the president himself who started publicly saying that we're not going to follow court orders because that compromises the mandate and vision of or manifesto of the executive. When you say that, means then, as an executive, judiciary does not have its own forces. It is using the executive forces to enforce law and order. Judiciary does not have its own resources. It's allocated by parliament and then of course released by executive. The money is there with them. Now, there are things which has been listed here following the meeting that took place yesterday. But as much as this meeting has taken place and came with some goodies, is it that if this meeting never happened, judiciary will not going to get this? And if this judiciary will not going to get this, their mandate is curtailed, then that means then they have to bow to the executive. This happened during Justice Marenda's time, and he was curtailed completely because resources were reduced, including his official vehicle, him complaining that he does not even have an official vehicle which is in good condition. And that created a lot of tension during that time between the judiciary and the executive. That continued actually until he exited. And there was even a drama when he was exiting. He was not given a clear state exit which he deserved to be given. But now, if Justice Kome has shaken hands with the president, then I think as Kenyans we are a bit shaken because we think that now justice will not be prevailed. If me, executive, want to sentence me or jail me, then they'll just talk to judiciary, and of course I'll be pushed into cell. So I think what I want to conclude in terms of my current conversation on this is that it is good for them to come openly. Meeting is okay because we want better things. We don't want the executive and the judiciary to be fighting on a political podium. We want them to fight on a boardroom and come up with exactly each and every person's mandate and draw it very well. That one we agree, but we want to know the content. And the major concern is, why must you be given goodies or you are given things which you have been given, whether you have in agreement with the executive or not, Maliba, so that you do your mandate?
Maliba, the question of the byproducts of this meeting points to the fact that this could be undue influence because the meeting, the intention or the genesis of this problem, and as the president had expressed, was corruption within the judiciary. So any meeting would have sought to address that one issue. These are the issues, as Dr. Isaac Hassan points out. These are things that normally should be provided for the judiciary. It did not necessitate, or it should not necessitate, a meeting between the Chief Justice and the President for them to get this: budgetary allocations, transport, and appointment of judges. It is pretty straightforward. President Ruto is on record as saying this is something the judiciary deserves, and on his very first action as president, he appointed some judges because he said this is required. But when we see that a meeting that was to discuss possible corruption in judiciary is coming out with other goodies, don't you think that that is what Kenyans are questioning?
First of all, again, I'll go back. This for me is a case of reporting. And reporting is key. That is why for a lot of guys who do research, who do work in programs, you will realize that we sometimes struggle to get a proper reporting person, a person who does monitoring, evaluation, learning and reporting. You sometimes struggle to get a proper person. This is a reporting problem. But let me try get this again.
Is it inaccurate to say that
that's why I actually want to come from somewhere with this. And I love going to the basics. There's a reason why every time we start a new study, we go to the principles, foundations. There's a reason why you go there. You know, when Montesquieu brought up this principle of separation, the theory of separation of powers, it was so good. The assumption was that for one to enjoy their rights, there's need for complete disaggregation of agencies, so that then if you go before the judiciary, no one else can actually come in. But then government is actually an organic component, and it's therefore impossible to completely separate or compartmentalize government. Every arm of government needs the assistance of the other. It's not possible that you will actually have government standing alone. That is where we are coming from. Then now, what has been the question that we've been discussing for the last few months? It's been a question that, if it were to be summarized, was that care should be taken for the judiciary and for the courts not to venture into the realms of policy. It's a process, it is a discussion that has been all over the world. At some point, the court said that they could not, in the US, that we cannot give the president an order. What are we saying? The argument that let's talk about from Nyandarua, where this debate started. This debate was simple. There are so many things. We've actually reported everything else. But in a word, I will tell you, it was just simple. That courts should take care so that they do not stray into the province of policy. Now, when the president came to office and he appointed the 51 judges that Maraga had gone to court and done everything and refused, had he met the CJ? No. When the president came in and increased the budget of the judiciary, much more than what we are seeing here, had they met? No. Are these goodies new on the paper? No. Have they, the request for cars, did they just appear yesterday? No. Did they originate from the executive? No. Have you looked at the statement, the 2-page statement they are released by Hussein, the State House spokesperson? That is the tail end of some of the things that were discussed.
Felt important.
Why are they? No. Why are they?
Can I finish?
Sorry, why are they
finished?
Mr. Maliba?
They have not been released. They have not been released. Probably you read the statement for Doc. Doc did not take time to read that statement. I took time. I have read it. I've been even reading it while we were looking at it here, while you were talking here. What am I trying to say? It's how you report. And our viewers must always remember this, that people with journalistic backgrounds will tell you that when people meet at Uhuru Park, that is not news. But if you say a man dies as people meet at Uhuru Park, it makes sense. So of all the things that were discussed, from the very beginning, we are talking about corruption. Of that statement, we're talking about corruption, where it should not happen, how we should actually work out. And this was a summit of head of arms. So of all those things, they take the last paragraph of 2 pages, and by the way, it's
still part of that statement.
Yeah, it's still part of it. I'm saying that is the rider.
Because
that is the rider.
Now it is appearing as if there was a negotiation of some sort.
No.
That for us to have this talk, then we need something in return.
Actually, it's the call by the president to meet the judiciary. It's okay, because today if you are called by the president, you go. I mean, but now the contentious issue right now, the issue at hand, is what was discussed and how that, there is no way that the news, the media is reporting the CJ went with a bow You know, that is very symbolic, you know.
That is the people daily.
Of course, she didn't go with
She said the media is reporting. No, the people daily.
No.
Very accurate.
The people daily.
By the way, we cannot start generalizing which media. We are talking about media. Media is media, you know. So for me, from where I sit, truth be told, one, this country we lose a lot of money, 2 billion every day. That is money that we should be told where is it going. And even this talk that they are talking about, for Kenyans where they are, they don't know who to trust and what to trust, because the past has informed us of what is likely to happen. So we have the past, we have what is with us, and therefore Kenyans, I'm looking at it as a Kenyan, not as any side of the divide politically, because we are not politicking currently. The devil is usually in the detail. That is where the issue is. Can we be told, in terms of budget lump sum, when this money comes, where does it go? Can we have an audited report? And we have seen some interference in the audit report, you know. And we are already seeing. Can we be told, if it is this appointment, what is the criteria? How are they being appointed? Because there are some lawyers still who are saying they have not been appointed as judges, you know. Can we be told this transport, can they come out clear? And with that is where Kenyans are concerned. And for me, I am concerned because if the judiciary goes to bed with the executive, then we are all in trouble.
And the question that arises is, if at all the judiciary went into this summit, Dr. Isaac Hassan, and managed to come out with 3 of these issues that have been highlighted, of which were captured in that 2-page statement signed by the State House spokesperson, then what did they have to give? That is the question people are asking.
Yes.
If you went into this summit and got out with something, what did you have to give for you to get this?
Yes.
I think it is very clear
Or
that
what is the need for the
judiciary
executive?
has been given some task. They have got some, they have been given their goodies. Of course, things that my brother here says it came from them. If it came from judiciary, then it would have been something which would have been on the limelight even prior to that meeting. What was in the limelight before this meeting was the issue of corruption, as you stated it earlier on. Corruption is totally different case altogether. And again, corruption in the judiciary cannot be discussed in public. The issue is that if you have an issue with a judiciary official, there are the systems which have been put in place. You are supposed to submit your case to JSC. And of course, from there, they go through the same way that non-judiciary official will go through when he is caught with corruption, because it's not exclusive for judiciary to have a special arrangement when discussing issues related to their corruption. But according to our understanding, according to the things that we currently vision, is that if the issue of concern with the president was corruption, we expected them to come out very clearly with the what do we call the milestone of how they were going to address the corruption issues within the judiciary.
They did.
But if
within 30 days,
if they have, if they have given us some goodies, if they have pegged on some conditions, for example, we don't know which conditions have been pegged in, but from the assumption that you have been told we will going to increase the number of judges for you, we will going to give you increase in budget, and we will want you to what do you call?
They'll be given more cars.
You will be given more transportation. Was that the primary focus or agenda that we expected to be discussed in this meeting? Because it has been publicized that judiciary will going to meet with the executive, and all through opposition from Azimio were saying that it is not time for judiciary to go and negotiate with the executive in regards to issues related to judicial systems.
Okay.
There are procedures which has been already put in place, and let them go through the same process. But if they are trying to give out from the way we see and from the way we have read on the, the statement released by our friend Hussein Mohammed, then it means that something that we don't understand is expected from the judiciary in terms of facilitating the executive.
Okay. Is it fair? Is it fair? Because
And we will
yes,
not-
if
before-
we
before
look at
just-
the other outcome of this
just-
meeting yesterday, yes, there was some renewed or some congress or an agreement on how to approach this issue of corruption. Yes, it was there.
Yeah.
But is it fair that we address corruption in any arm of government by having an exchange of goodies? Because those two are contained in the same document.
Can we be very fair and probably read that particular part? That will actually solve this problem, because the way you actually are phrasing it is that, do we solve corruption by exchanging goods? As in, do we solve corruption by corruption? That's what you're actually asking. Which is unfair.
Isn't it coming out the same way?
No. You see, perception.
The fact that judiciary requires a budgetary allocation, the fact that it requires
That is a
appointment
further
of judges,
request.
the fact that they
Just because they are fighting.
why was it addressed in the same document?
Yeah.
From a
No.
summit?
Let me just
I
ask
want
this.
to add another question. I want to add for you another question so that you move forward.
don't worry, I'll
The question
actually-
is our budget system done by the executive? Our
No.
budget system
I'd
is a
love-
process that is
for purposes of
submitted
fairness.
by the executive, but deliberated in
Parliament.
Parliament.
For purposes of fairness, if it's possible, the producer should actually probably put up that particular bit of the statement, and I'll read you. Let me read that so that then we actually get home and discuss this thing fairly. That is point number 5. There are 6 bullets on that particular statement, and it reads this way: to optimize the efficient delivery of service and fight against corruption, comma, the executive, comma, and the legislature will support judiciary's request for additional budgetary support to achieve, among others, the following: to facilitate the recruitment of additional 25 judges of the High Court. B, to facilitate the recruitment of new judges of the Court of Appeal. C, resources will also be provided to conclude the vehicle leasing program to facilitate the judiciary's transport needs. But then if you had to look at number 6, it says the executive, the legislature, and the judiciary will commit to perform their
Functions.
the executive, the legislature, and judiciary commit to perform their functions in a manner that respects, promotes, and enhances the rule of law, institutional independence, and the respect of decisions.
Are we supposed to be reminded that?
I needed to read.
That's their role, their mandate.
There is a reason why we always renew our commitments to these things. It's just like I know I'm a Christian, so let me tell you something. When we wake up every morning, we decide that we will continue to be Christians, because we can wake up in the morning and change our minds. So the continued commitment, that is a continuous process. But be that as it may, I want to walk back and say this. On 2nd of July in 2014, William Mutunga asked to meet Uhuru Kenyatta, and they met. That was not corruption. He had issues he wanted to take care of. Every arm of government has a way of reaching out. There's a time when the legislature is having problems or some challenges where they need assistance of the executive, and they reach out. There's nothing wrong with that. On 8th of June, it is reported, and that is in 2020, Maraga said Uhuru Kenyatta had refused to meet him, and it made headlines that he had made so much effort to meet Uhuru Kenyatta, then the president, and it was impossible. Somehow, when we actually want to discuss some of these things in isolation, it actually makes for laughing, because when we show up in the morning here, honestly, we should be able to actually consider these things much more than they are. So I wanted to say this, that whereas there's the independence of institutions, we also must appreciate that there is the interdependence. Every arm needs the other one. For example, if you need a budget, you will need both the parliament, which is the legislature, and even the executive.
Is this part of the budget making process?
They
Because
have said,
budgetary commitment.
no. There is nothing wrong, because how do we do budget making? If you're looking at the budget cycle, right? And they have said clearly here that the executive and the legislature will support judiciary's request, so, which means they will. It is a process that is ongoing. Part and parcel of what they've actually bulleted down there, C talks about there is a process, the car leasing, the vehicle leasing program. They're talking about, it's already ongoing, that some of those resources will go to that. So when, and I need to ask this in all earnest, that just because the judiciary and the executive have been bickering, does it mean that the needs of the judiciary that they've been working on go away? Does it mean that when they meet together to harmonize, they are working and everything else? This is an administrative thing. It's a best practice sharing among arms. So when we show up and then we want to say that they should not be meeting, this bickering, and you say that the exchange of things.
Are we getting this cool?
And let's be fair, because no one in this panel said that they should not be meeting.
arm of the government.
Actually, I said they should
The meeting
actually
is okay.
meet. The meeting has
But everything, so when they meet, what were they? That's what I'm saying. What were they to discuss?
Corruption in judiciary.
Do you know when Mutunga was meeting Uhuru, what was he asking for? Was he asking for a bribe?
No.
In fact,
When Maraga wanted to meet, President Uhuru, was he looking for a bribe?
Are we mixing
Are
issues
these
here?
items?
we're mixing
No,
issues.
it is the it's you
by the
people
way,
who are
my
mixing
brother,
up issues.
My brother Maliba, let's not misread Kenyans, because Kenyans
You
are
are the
looking
ones
at us.
misleading Kenyans.
And they are looking at us as experts, and they are wondering what is on the paper and what we are saying and what is on the ground. So the divergence and convergence views, they are actually misleading Kenyans. And I think from where I sit, let us not lie to Kenyans. This meeting is not a problem, because I said the head of state, if he calls anybody, I mean anybody, be it a Mama Boga, you should be able to appear, Now, for this one, this is not an easy meeting. We are not talking of an ordinary meeting. We are talking of the judiciary, which should be independent. And what we are saying,
But still
the head of
interdependent.
judiciary has gone with a bow and has gone to borrow. And we have
Borrow?
a budget, yes. We
That's
have,
not
we
borrowing.
have a budget that has already been cut out for judiciary, for the Kenya police, for the prisons, for what? How come this particular one for the courts, for the judiciary, is the one that is contested? And I think
It's not contested.
No, it's not. Why have they not written prison here?
In my life of working around the budgeting process, I just wanted to say,
Maliba, the truth is, and with all due respect, we are not in a campaign or a competition trail currently. Where we are on fact-finding and wanting to build the economy together. But we cannot build the economy when we are lying to one another. We must tell one another the truth. We must ask pertinent questions. Why there was all this hurabaru that the judiciary is going to meet with the president? That is not a problem. But now when we see the 9 points of what they discussed, there is more than meets the eye. And for me, where I've seen the head of state, somebody I respect so much. By the way, last year, he gave me a Resilience Award winner in Kenya. So I respect him for that, for recognizing my work. But we have seen him defy orders.
no, he has not.
We have seen.
We should not sit here and lie to Kenyans.
No. We have seen.
The president has not. And but the part and parcel of what they say here is the respect of court orders. No, let's talk about facts.
No. The truth is, we have seen.
Which order has the president defied?
We are saying, we have seen him say, there is nobody who is going to stop this. There is nobody who is going to stop.
What is wrong with that?
No. You see,
is that defying court orders?
No, as the head of state,
That is
as the
conflation,
presidency, nobody is above the law. And for sure, if this is what has happened, the ball was topped up with some goodies, then there will be no independence of the judiciary.
Was it necessary?
That is not true. Unless the definition of the word independence is actually, as in, how can we water down that concept of independence?
I think we're in agreement that the meeting was not in itself the problem.
Yes.
It is the outcome of this
No one,
meeting.
Yes,
and no one here on this table, no one is talking about the 30-day set
They can
for
even
purposes.
be, don't even talk
I'm
about
saying,
30.
as in, no.
They can be whatever days.
Can I finish?
And we'll come
Can I
to
finish
that
as a
discussion
particular?
about
The
fighting
30
corruption.
days setting up of the National Council of Administrative Justice to ensure that all these issues that are emerging are actually put together and people put in their submissions too. I just wanted to say this, that in my days, or rather for all the days I've actually worked around governance spaces, including teaching and facilitating budget making. it's honestly laughable to actually say that budgets are cut out that way. People bargain. There is a way, when you want an extra bargain, people work around.
Question there.
And two,
Just
look at the lynching that is going on. I cannot even execute a point.
I have a question, and
a basic point.
I will protect you and I'll ensure you get it. Now the issue is, is this head of arms summit a budget-making process?
Yes, there's nothing wrong with it.
No.
The items that are listed
there
is nothing wrong with this. Look at this. At agenda making, look at this. I don't know whether you're talking about MTEF or you're talking about the other. You know, when we are talking about the budget level, currently we're using the MTEF framework. If you look at the MTEF framework, when people meet, especially among departments, they still meet and pitch. So what did this statement read? It said that the executive and the legislature is the budget-making body in this country, right? The executive still has got treasury on the other side, right? They said, we will support their request. It's actually an ongoing process. So that then we don't come up with the idea that, remember in the days of old, we have just come from a regime where we read headlines that the judiciary's budget has been cut because they were not in good terms. We are quickly forgetting that and rushing in here because we are suffering from what I would call the little chicken syndrome. You remember, the sky is falling. Every time the president says something, people just see whatever can actually go wrong around that. When the president stands out, and we need, but then we actually need to come home and talk about this. What did the president say in Nyandarua? He said very, very clearly that he is inviting the nation to a conversation on some of these decisions. I have summarized it in one line.
He also, because you questioned,
then let me finish.
He also directed a PS to proceed with a road construction that had been stopped by the court.
I'll get to that. Then, then the president say he will not accept? The president said he will not accept judicial tyranny and judicial impunity. Now, the first ask, we must have a national conversation. Are we having a national conversation? Yes. The protests you have seen in the streets are a national conversation. This particular conversation we are having here and debate everywhere, that is a national conversation. The radio debates and all the noises people are making, that is a national debate. Because who told you that dialogue is easy? Dialogue is difficult. Now we are having it. Have they ended up having it in State House at that particular level? Do you look at the outcome? So why are we nitpicking that and not looking at the core issues?
It is.
Yes, we are nitpicking.
It is very difficult.
We are nitpicking
on budget.
We are nitpicking that and running away with anything that looks like it can actually go wrong.
It's very difficult to justify.
Making process.
Yes, I said
it's very
what is
difficult
outside
to
of
justify. It is very difficult to justify something which is not justifiable.
Yes.
And that is a fact. Let's take back the tray of conversation. The judiciary stopped the implementation of the tax laws. Two, the judiciary stops the housing, the low housing project.
Yes.
Now, the judiciary stops the
housing
CAS.
levy, not the
yes, the housing levy. The judiciary stopped the implementation or appointment of CAS. These were the three contentious things that the president talked about, and he said, executive is expected to deliver their mandate, and judiciary is becoming an issue, and therefore we will not go into respect or follow any judicial directives which will go into compromise executive's delivery of services or mandate. That was very clear, and it was in an open conversation. It wasn't something which was hidden or whatever it is. Then this necessitated outcry from all quarters, including lawyers, including opposition leaders, including people who understands governance structure in this country. If that was put in place, then we expected the president to discuss the issue which has taken him to that level, where he went ahead and discussed issues that will going to entice the judiciary so that they are able to conform to the executive's demand. If that is the case, I mean, there are a lot of things you will find. Why we are asking a lot of questions is, you went for a meeting that we expected a very heated debate in regards to independence of judiciary, as well as respecting rule of law. This is not a banana nation. So if that was the case, then the outcome says or gives us that judiciary has been allocated significant number of budgetary issues that they had. And on that case, then we are saying, the public is losing confidence in the judiciary. And that's the whole thing that we are just saying.
Let's examine the other outcome of this meeting. Yes. One of the outcomes is the kind of goodies that the judiciary came out with.
Yes.
The other outcome is this agreement that within 30 days, each arm of government will submit the proposals made to a forum of the National Council of the Administration of Justice, NCAJ, convened by Her Ladyship, the Chief Justice. This forum will provide a roadmap for the immediate, medium-term and long-term measures to be undertaken. This is as far as fighting corruption in the judiciary is concerned. The NJAC or NCAJ has been there for quite a while. It is an institution that exists, but people are questioning. There's so many. We already have institutions to fight corruption. We already have an institution like even the JSC that if you have a complaint against any judicial officer, that is your go-to institution. We have the ESCC, we have the ODPP and all other institutions. Why are we going to another institution to kickstart
another process?
You see, that's the whole point, and that's why we are saying, can we strengthen the institutions that we have and we give them the independence that they deserve, instead of creating more and more institutions that will not...
it exists, yes.
It is there, but you see, it is looking like it's something new. And from where I sit, our independent commissions, they are not independent. They are not strengthened. Like sometimes I would say they are toothless dogs. Because you see, this arm want to say this and this arm want to say this. But before I lose my thought on budget issue, what Maliba was talking about here. Budget process or budget making process is actually a real and a very serious process, and it starts in September. Like now we started the budget for this year started last year, and where we are right now, if we want to inform Kenyans that what they were doing is budget, we are not yet at the point whereby they need to submit what they require, because that is what happens. Institutions are called upon, it goes to the county, and every public participation happens, and every institution and parastatals, they give their input and what they want. We are not yet there. Currently, because we are not yet in February, because that's when it happens. So you find it is very wrong to mislead Kenyans and tell them it was a question of budget making process. This is something else, and I am convinced, maybe we'll be vindicated, but I'm convinced what has happened yesterday, there is more than meet the eye. Okay. For me, I'm convinced, and what I would like to tell Kenyans is that it's a wait and see. Let's pray for this government.
Kenyans are looking at
let's pray for this government, because a government that is already not working, it's not helping anybody. Okay. Today we are buying unga at whatever money, Mama Boga is the same, and even the rich people,
Okay.
So
let's examine this the approach in fighting corruption. And corruption is corruption, whether in executive...
And that is point number one.
In legislature or in the judiciary.
Yes.
Why are we appearing to, or rather, why is the heads of arms summit seeking to go about it in a different way?
First of all, just allow me to say this, that if you were to look at the MTF framework, that is the medium-term expenditure framework's approach to budget making, in which our National Treasury actually works with, the 5-year cycle, you will actually realize that there is nothing wrong with people just meeting and saying that we commit ourselves to support what you already are doing. They had made, number one, to actually make peace. So when they meet and they have actually spoken, then everybody renews their commitment that the executive and the legislature will actually support your request for extra budget, which is actually in the process. It did not have to wait for this. But then, because it's important,
byproduct of a negotiation.
It's not a byproduct, but then as they meet, but as they meet, and the judiciary already said that part and parcel of the problems they have was a lesser budget. They're telling you that we're talking about, you see, that is coming up and saying, part and parcel of what we are facing in the administration of justice, we need a budget for this and this because we have got a shortage here, this backlog here. And when there is a backlog of cases, for example, the need, or rather demand and supply. Sometimes if you want yours to be expedited, then probably you're going to have people having ideas about, we are so many and I need to go in front of the line. So something else should actually happen around that. So, and it's actually in the spirit of fighting corruption. Okay. How we need to speak and go around that is actually unfair. But I needed to say this. We need to move away from this concept where if President William Ruto says today that I love Coke, then the media shouts, Ruto declares war on Fanta. When the president coughs, we rush and then say the president has declared war on silence. Literally, we need to get to a place where we don't have to read mischief in everything else. We are becoming a society that is obsessed with looking for something black elsewhere.
Skepticism is
that vampire mentality. It's okay. Skepticism is okay, but then coming out and now starting to look like we are conspiracy theorists. The media, especially for news reporting, I will say this: that interpretation of news, when you are doing quotes. And you know that we always talk about that facts are sacred and opinion is free. We who are seated here are free to bring it out opinion. That's why we are here. But you see, regime bashing, regime hating, going around, that cannot be considered to be fair commentary. So,
you still haven't answered
so you talk about this approach. Mm-hmm. Is the NCAJ a new agency? No. Mm-hmm. Is it in law? Yes. Is what it's supposed to do part and parcel of what it's actually being suggested here? Yes. So where then is the problem?
Why do they have institutions in place to fight corruption?
And
why are we having dialogue?
And that is what the president was saying.
Dialogue over fighting corruption in the judiciary?
Because
it's a lay-down procedure.
No.
This is
because somehow, when you talk about judicial independence in this country, people are treating the judiciary as if it is some holy shrine. That we must approach it with
we have seen an
with shoes removed.
A sitting governor alleged corruption against a sitting judicial officer. He approached the JSC. It was very much publicized.
It works.
But
then can you go back to the point I said much earlier on? I said that when we are talking about the principle, or even the theory of separation of powers, we said that government is organic. You cannot compartmentalize government because each and every one of those part needs assistance from the other part. And I said that in so doing, when you talk about independence here, this independence is not straitjacket where you cannot talk to the other person. We know, and by the way, it's in our laws that there is interdependence. But when the president raised that particular issue, all of us were rushing that he cannot say that. In fact, here, Doc here said that corruption in the judiciary cannot be discussed about openly. And I actually protested that, but you didn't allow that particular point. There are ways of dealing with that, but then there is Article 1.
He meant that
there is Article 1.
In public is
there's no problem with that because Article 1, Article 1 of the Constitution, Article 1 of the Constitution says that all sovereign power belongs to the people of Kenya, and the people can exercise it directly or indirectly. Where it's indirectly, they delegate it. Even the judiciary exercises delegated power, and the president himself is a product of the people. So when he goes back to the people, that is public participation. There is nothing wrong that the president is a political creation. So when the president is doing the work the way he's actually created, what is wrong with that? There is nothing wrong with that.
My brother Maliba,
there is one issue of corruption.
Yes.
Is it dialogue that is going to solve corruption?
He said as a nation, yes. Look at this. Dialogue is a way. If you look at Article 10, and all of us, Kenya is a participatory government.
Should we be addressing corruption through dialogue?
No, he said issues that exist.
The moment you say corrupt judicial officials, this has been specified. They are individuals.
He said some.
Yes, some means you have already specified there are individuals who are corrupt. Take your case to the necessary arm of the government. Let them go do the necessary investigation and let them be apprehended and taken to court, the same court. And they will not go into face different procedure because they are judicial officials. But why do you want, are we trying to sensitize the community in regards to corruption? Is that what our aim is?
Because treating judicial corruption in a different way,
in a different way from others. I don't think if that will going to be of any help in the nation. What will going to help us is that one, first and foremost, if there is any issue regarding corruption, let EACC, JSC, and ODPP take they play their role. They need to play their bit. If there is any special occasion in the event that there is specific issues that needs to be addressed in a different manner, let them tell us, because there are things which can be addressed once they have been tabled and told, I mean, given the fact that this is why we want to address it differently for this particular time. If governors and ministers have been taken to court by EACC, judicial official should be also taken to court for that purpose.
Okay.
And the people who are going to prove that this particular person is corrupt or this particular person has been accused is the person who is submitting that case. Prosecution should prove that this person is guilty. Judicial officials will only wait the fact that you have accused a specific person with certain criminal offense, and therefore the proof is with them. So once they prove, of course, the judicial official will going to face the law, the same law that he administers when other Kenyans come to judiciary. So I don't think if it is necessary for us to have a public or a community dialogue or a public dialogue in regards to addressing judicial, let me repeat again, judicial or institutional corruption.
Dr. Isaac Hassan, asante sana.
Yes, thank you so much. And to our viewers, my take would be, as Kenyans, let's get back to work. Let's start working, because this conversation about the judiciary, it's way high for a common mwananchi. So for me, from where I will sit, I will encourage all Kenyans to be to exercise justice to one another and to be fair to one another, so that we don't have issues to go to take to court, because already people are discussing they don't have a lot of faith and they feel like they will not get justice in courts. And I want to encourage the parents now. Last year I told them they are on their own, and they need to make sure that they are working very hard to be able to pay their school fees for their children, because that is something that you cannot bypass. After a few years, you cannot be able to take your child to school. And lastly, is on the health issues that this country, majority of people are facing, be it mental, be it whatever. Let us make sure we are going to, like, for example, to be tested before, so that we do preventive care, because what we are seeing, even our NHIF covers, the insurance covers, they are not able to meet our health issues. Okay. And we pray for this country and we hope for the best this year. Okay. And we are very optimistic. We support the government of the day, but we are also not sycophants.
Thank you, Dr. Chege.
Yes.
You have 60 seconds, Maliba.
Number one, it's important to actually remind all Kenyans that no man is above the law. And again, no man is beneath the law. And we should not ask for anybody's permission when we ask people or agencies to actually adhere to that particular law, be they the executive, be they the legislature, be they the judiciary. So, having said that, if you can think something, you should not be ashamed to say it. So, what have we been saying? The president was raising an issue, and I want to summarize that care should be taken to ensure that the judiciary does not stray into the territory of policy and policy making. That is an area of jurisprudence that we need to actually discuss, and as a nation come up to a consensus. That is why he said we need to have a conversation. As such, there's nothing wrong with that. Having said that, we have had the conversation as the president called, so it was successful. We've seen all the ideas coming up. We've had a conversation. That particular conversation has helped us to push through January. You see, January is almost getting to an end because we've been very vehemently discussing these particular issues. I would like to say this, that last year was a little bit difficult. This year would be slightly easy, not entirely where we want it to be. But I never believed I would actually dedicate a song to Kenyans. I would love them to actually listen to Who Mwaka by Dio, as in work out, make it work, show up and let it count.
Okay.
Yeah. Can I say one thing?
Yes, 30 seconds.
In my 30 seconds, I'll say two things. One, I want to respond to him that indeed, judiciary know their role, and their role is very much demarcated in the Constitution, and therefore they should
jurisprudence grows.
They should adhere to their role.
Jurisprudence grows.
Two,
it can never be defined geometrically.
Okay. Two, we need judicial independence or institutions that is independent to serve this nation. Thirdly, Kenyans are crying in terms of their cost of living. Indeed, we need to find a way in which we can ease Kenyans' way of living or the cost of living for them this year. And that is what I'm going to say. And my brother Maliba should not justify things which are not justifiable.
There's
Thank you
nothing
so
more
much.
justifying.
Thank you so much, Dr. Harun Isaac. Hassan, we have no more time. Leadership and governance expert, Dr. Julia Chege, governance expert, and Maliba Arnold, strategic communication advisor, UDA. Our panelists this morning, thank you so much for a very robust debate.
Thank you very
To
much.
the editorial comment now.
Thank you.
Now, yesterday's summit of the heads of the three arms of government has definitely raised eyebrows and skepticism among the public. The peculiar nature of such a meeting, considering the traditional independence of these institutions, has led many to question the true motives behind this united front. The skepticism surrounding the meeting is rooted in the fear that one arm of government may be attempting to exert undue pressure on the others, compromising their autonomy for its own agenda. Now, despite the widespread criticism and concerns of a potential undue influence, the President, Chief Justice, and the Speaker of Parliament announced their commitment to developing policies and legislative proposals independently to fight corruption. While acknowledging the valid apprehensions shared by many, today we choose to be cautiously embracing of the optimism. Our positivity hinges on the hope that the leaders' promises to revive the fight against graft are genuine and will lead to tangible results. For decades, the curse of corruption has hindered the country's development, contributing to unemployment, inequality, and a growing divide between the rich and the poor. Any commitment to combat corruption is therefore seen as a glimmer of hope, prompting us to give the benefit of the doubt to these